Hi there, it's Winston Okatubo here, and I'll be taking you on the app development course. So in this course, we'll be looking at what app development is, different ways of building apps, right, and also some very important languages that we need to know when building apps, and also some key concepts as regards to app development. Without wasting so much time, let's jump right into the video. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is what app development really is. Alright, so app development is the process of designing, building, and maintaining software applications on mobile, web, or desktop platforms. Now, this means that app development is not just limited to mobile apps, right? So when I say mobile apps, I mean like Android and iOS. So it also cuts across for web and desktop applications. Now, the reason why app development is important, there are lots of reasons. Number one is it's very user friendly. Like users, they relate more with apps compared to websites. And also it increases sales for businesses. So you see businesses like e-commerce, right? So they make more sales on their apps compared to their websites. And aside e-commerce business, also have other kind of platforms. See apps like boats, right? So they are they become Boat, Uber, they become very like they have higher user base these days due to the fact that they're using apps. And when you use apps, also allows you to do some certain functionalities, we call them native functionalities, that an ideal website may not be able to give to you. So the key aspects of app development, it involves coding, UI UX design, testing, and deployment. It can be native, web, or cross-platform. Now it uses languages like JavaScript, Swift, Kotlin, Dart. Some popular frameworks include React, React Native, Flutter, SwiftUI. And the tools you need, basically, for this course, you need a Flutter SDK, VS Code, and an emulator. So the first thing there is that we'll be using the language called Flutter. Now, Flutter is owned by Google, and Google is the owner of Android, right? But Flutter gives us this, how like put it, this freedom of building apps for not just an Android device, right? So we can also build an app for Android, build an app for iOS. You can also build a desktop application and also a web application. Now it sounds like these things are normal, but really they are not really normal. Before now, they were not really normal. Because before now, if you wanted to build an app, either you said, okay, you say I'm building an app for an Android device, or I'm building an app for an iOS device or whatever. Now the difference there is that for you to build for Android, you need a different language, which is Kotlin or Java, and for you to build for iOS in another language, which is Swift, right? So, but languages like Flutter, they help you build for these both platforms with the same code base. So this is like a game changer for the app development industry. So with just one language, you're able to build for the both platforms. How cool is that? Now, aside building for both platforms, also backed by Google. I know Google actually, whenever they're doing something, they make sure they do it well. And apart from them doing it well, they also have a very good community base. Now, what this means is, for a language that has a good community base, what it means that the community itself, that's people that actually use this language, they actually produce materials or resources, right? So you can easily get materials on Flutter. Let's say, for example, you're trying to achieve something and you're finding it difficult, right? So for a language like Flutter, it's easier because probably the issue you're facing, someone else might have faced it before and they've put the solution up online, right? So when a language has a rich community base, that's one of the benefits you get. And aside that, we also have some things called packages. So later on in the course, we'll get into what packages are. Now, packages, in a nutshell, just make programming easier. Let's say I want to perform a particular task. For example, you're building an app that allows users to take pictures of themselves. Right, these things don't just work, you have to actually code it. But with the use of packages, it makes that functionality easier for you to implement because someone might have gone through the whole stress of writing all the codes and it gives you a very small way for you to do it. Right, so later on in the course, look at what packages are. Now, the first thing that we need is our Flutter SDK. Now, the Flutter SDK is what will allow us to write Flutter codes. And how do you get the Flutter SDK? It's pretty simple. So you head on to your browser, and you go to this URL flutter.dev. So this is their landing page. Basically it tells you about Flutter and some good stuff about it. So you scroll down to the part that says get started, but if you still want to go through it, you see some features. It's fast, it's productive, and it's flexible. Yeah, flexible. It needs control every pixel to create customized adaptive designs that look and feel great on any screen. So basically it's talking about it being responsive. It being responsive, that means it can fit into any screen. Reach users on any screen. Like I told you before, you can deploy a Flutter app either on iOS, on Android, on web, on desktop, and even embedded devices. Now I'll say embedded devices might bring up some of those TVs, watches, and all of that. Trusted by many, have a rich community base, seamless integration with Google services. So you already know that Google has, aside Google itself, that's the search engine, Google also has some other great applications. For example, we have the Google Maps, we have the Firebase, we have the Google Plus. So there are lots of other things. So now using the language like Flutter, right, it makes it easier for you to integrate these services. It's just like second nature. So lots of things said about them. So we just head on to get started. Now, getting started, this is all about you trying to get the Flutter SDK. Now, the SDK you get will be dependent on the device you are using. So the SDK we use for Windows is different from the one used on Mac OS, that's MacBook or Apple, and it's different from the one from Linux or Chrome OS. So for this particular course, I'll be using Windows. So I'd select Windows and choose the first type of app. So this doesn't really matter, but I'll just choose Android. And yes, one more thing. So if you want to really go into app development and you might be wondering what kind of system do you really need, right? So I would recommend a MacBook. Yeah. The reason being that is not because MacBook is Apple. The reason is just political from the Apple's end. Now picture this. If I want to build an app for an Apple device, let's say an iPhone, I must need or I must use a MacBook because Apple will not allow you to build the app for an Apple phone. Now, when I say build, I don't mean writing the codes, or let me say for me to deploy an Apple app. Now, deploying means putting this app on the Apple Store. So the process that involves putting this app on the Apple Store, that's the whole deployment. So for me to actually do that, I will need a MacBook because there's a particular application called Xcode that will need to do the whole process. Now Xcode only runs on Apple devices, so this means that I need a MacBook to do that. Whereas if I want to deploy an Android app, I don't necessarily need to use a Windows laptop, right? So I can also use a MacBook to deploy an Android app because the app that is responsible for that is called Android Studio can also run on MacBook, but the Apple equivalent, which is Xcode, cannot run on Windows. So as I said, it's a bit political. And aside that, some MacBooks have some higher processing power and higher graphics card. So that's one of the reasons why I would prefer you to use a MacBook. But if you're not using a MacBook and using a Windows, from what you've seen here, so the minimum requirement is like an 8 GB RAM, but recommended is 16. Then the resolution, the space, and all of that stuff. So if you really want to get the best experience, just go for a laptop that has 8 GB RAM plus, right? So it saves you lots of time and stress. So they will say lots of things here, but just scroll down to the part that says download and install. You can use VS Code to install, you can use download and install. So if you click on download and install, you select this. So I've already downloaded mine. It's about 1 gig. So once you download that, you are good to move to the next step. So if you follow this stuff that they said there, so for the user profile downloads, so lot of stuff will be said here, but I'll just walk us through to what all these guys really mean, right? So now let's head on to it. So I'll go to this folder that was created, or the folder that was downloaded. Then I would extract it. So let me extract it to a particular location. Now this is very important, so you're extracting it to. So I will be extracting it to my documents folder. So I'm extracting this Flutter to my documents folder. So wait for it to finish extracting. Now after it finish extracting, there's something else I want to set. It's called the environment variable. Now the environment variable gives us access to run some Flutter commands on the terminal. So some laptops call it terminal, some call it command prompts, some call it PowerShell. Alright, so after putting this application or this folder in the documents folder, we'll edit our environment variables that will give us access to run those Flutter commands. So while it's doing this, so we'll go back to the environment variable. So for you to get the environment variable, press the Windows key and search for environments. Now this process is totally different from Mac and Linux. Right, so for Mac you can follow the instructions that are written there. Or you can use VS Code to install it. So whichever one that works for you, but they are all easy to install. So yeah, so I'll go back to environment variables here. So I'll move on to system variables. Now we have this one called path. So this is what I really want to edit. So I'm waiting for these guys to finish exporting. So click on edit here. Alright, so the path is what I want to edit. So I edit it. Then we have different links here already. A whole lot of other stuff. I think these guys are not done 96%. So let's just give it a few minutes for it to finish. Okay, so it's done extracting. So I'll head over to the documents folder and look for it there. It should be here, yeah, Flutter. So now inside this folder called Flutter, there's a particular folder I'm looking for. So it's bin, and bin, I think, yeah. So this is the folder I want to add here. So what I'll do now is I'll copy this part, like this whole stuff here. So if you click here, that's on this box, you can just see it highlighted. Then Ctrl C, copy it. Then you come here, that's the path variable. So what I'll do, I'll add a new one here. So I'll just paste that same thing I copied and click OK. So I can still go ahead and edit this part here. That's one of the user variables. So I'll still do the same thing. New, I drop that there. Okay. So that's done. So now let's quickly test it out. Now if you don't have VS Code already installed, so you can head over to your browser and type Visual Studio Code. And the first thing that comes here, that's code.visualstudio.com. You click on the link, it opens up. You select the exact device you are using, then you download. Now after downloading, the installation process is also simple. You just walk through it by clicking next, and you are done. So now let's quickly test if our Flutter installation works. So how do I test that? It's very simple. I'll press my Windows key, then type in cmd. That's the command prompt. So when it opens up, if I type Flutter -v. So it's taking some time, that means it actually works. Yeah, that I know it works. So it will take some time then to come up with some nice stories, a whole lot of things that you may not really understand, right? So that's how we install Flutter. Now after installing Flutter, before we start writing the Flutter codes, I want to show us some resources that we will be needing. some resources that we will be needing. Now, in order for us to write Flutter, we also need to understand that programming language, as DART, that programming language. Now, the Dart programming language is what you would use when you're building your apps. So during the course of this course, we're going to go through that. This should be the first part. Understand what that is. Now, also for us to have a very good design, let's head over to Figma. Now, what is Figma? So Figma, is more like a tool where designers, that's UI designers, create wonderful designs about apps. Now, the way app development works is, before an app is actually built, the app may have been designed. So the standard is you design the app first, but though sometimes if the company or startup don't have much funds available, they might just skip the UI design part. But ideally, the UI design must be done. Now, what is the UI design? So the way I love explaining UI design is like graphic design, but now you're designing apps instead of flyers and banners, right? So that's how I see it. So now on Figma, we have lots of other designs and all of that, right? So when you head on to Figma, you can create some accounts. Now what we'll be using Figma for is basically for, what's it called now? Figma will be used for getting UI designs. So since we'll not be designing the UIs ourselves, to quickly come onto Figma, then use any of the designs that we like to continue our app development. So look at the design and try to replicate it. Alright, so that's one of the tools we'll be using. The other tool that we will be using is the emulator. Now the emulator is basically, as the name sounds, emulates an actual phone. So the reason why you need a laptop that has a higher RAM, that's from 8 GB upwards, is because if your RAM is low and you're trying to run an emulator, which is for Android, so on Android it's called emulator, on iOS it's called simulator, but they both mean the same thing. So if you try to run an emulator with like a 4 GB RAM laptop, your laptop might just freeze or it may start lagging. Now lagging means it will take you longer time to do something. So if you type something, you have to wait for some seconds before it shows, and your laptop starts hanging, right? So that's why you need a laptop that has a higher RAM because of the emulator. But if you don't have a laptop that has a higher RAM, so you can also use the Chrome browser to test your apps. But the feel will be different, the experience will be different, but it will give you similar results. So if you don't have if your system cannot run an emulator correctly, then you need like a Chrome browser to like test it out. Alright. Then for the emulator, if you actually want to install an emulator, so you go through Android, you install Android Studio Code, Android Studio, that's for Windows. Then you install Xcode for Mac. So those two applications, they're actually big and a bit tricky to install the simulators and emulators. So if you go to the platform for Android Studio, you can just type Android Studio on your browser. So once you search for Android Studio, you see download now. So when you download it, then you can also Google how can I add an emulator, right? So Android Studio, so it's a very simple step. Same thing for iOS. So once you've installed Xcode, right? Xcode is a bit bigger, like 15 gigs. So once you're done installing it, they'll show you the steps on adding. Or for Xcode, it automatically comes with the simulators, right? It's actually big, so it comes with all your simulators. So you have your iPhones, has a tablet, also has a watch, depending on the device you want to build for. But once you've gotten all of that set, then it's a straight journey. So during the course of this whole course, we walked through some very key concepts in building mobile apps, and we're going to be using the Chrome browser for our emulator. So once we get started, we look at what that is, then we get into Flutter, what Flutter really is. Then while also doing that, we understand some concepts in programming. So it would be good if you don't have knowledge about programming, right? So use this first part of the course to actually understand programming. I also use some online resources to further understand it in case my explanation doesn't do well. But we'll explore the key concepts that we need. So after that, then we'll start creating our app. So it's going to be very, very